I'm in San Diego. I'm no longer with my plants. I had to leave my plants in the care of my roommate.
You have a little plant behind you, though. You still got
Dude,
something.
There are real plants in this Airbnb. They're real plants.
Oh, well. Wait, you're saying your plants are fake? Aren't yours real as well?
No, my plants are absolutely real, but that's because I take care of them. Who has an Airbnb and also like manages real plants? I mean, they're all like basic beginner plants that like are pretty like nuclear. But like, yeah, real plants.
Yeah, basic beginner plants. I love that. I wouldn't even know what an advanced or a beginner plant is.
Yeah. Well, that's because you don't have any plants, or you have figurines.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you know what an advanced figurine is, and I have no clue.
You know what I find funny? How you're in a singlet, and I'm here in Melbourne, and it's freezing today. It's like 9 degrees Celsius,
What did you just call
43
this?
Fahrenheit. A singlet.
I've never heard
What do you
that
call
before.
it?
A tank top.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sorry, a what?
A tank top.
Tank top. Oh, yeah, no, we use tank top as well, but the singlet is used like fairly frequently in Australia.
Oh, interesting. Dude, look at this one.
Yeah,
It's like, it looks very like Pacific Northwest, like trees and mountains and shit, but also coffee. And like, it's perfectly David. I really like coffee. If you didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of coffee myself, so yes. Man, it's been a couple of weeks since we did one of these, and I was telling you last night, I'm like, hey man, like the ETH price was like way lower than it is now, and it's only been 2 weeks. It's amazing how far it's gone. It was like 2,700 or something. No, it was lower back 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was like 2,700 or something, and now we're at like, what is it? Like 4K, just over 4K now.
Yeah,
and I was like, a lot has happened.
Inside of a brand new paradigm, completely different world.
Do not say that.
Oh no, I've been
saying
paradigm literally every available opportunity. I'm a fan of like all of these like, top signals, can't say new paradigm, blah blah blah. I'm a fan of just like blatantly violating those just for the sake of blatantly violating them.
Well, I hope for your sake that the universe is kind to you for those, because every time I celebrate an ETH price rise, it just tanks. So the universe is not kind to me.
the ETH maxi, except for like the last week or so, the quote unquote ETH maxis like Yumi, DC, etc. Like I feel like there has been like some like poking of the head of the gloating, but like otherwise, I feel like we've kind of kept it on the DL like decently well for what it is for the current ETH price rise.
Yeah, I've noticed Eric in particular is doing a lot of ETH BTC gloating,
right.
A lot of flippening gloating, and I'm just like, man, like, I don't know. I think he'll be fine with it. I think if I started to do it, that'd be really bad because I think, as soon as I tweet something about the flippening, I'm going to assume that like the ratio is going back to like 0.016, the low. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it means different when you do it.
Yeah. So everyone else can do it and it's fine. I'll just retweet. But yeah, man, what a crazy last 2 weeks, not just in the markets.
We're even talking about like as the flippening is like already happened or basically like guaranteed. So maybe this is a top signal.
I mean, it's always been guaranteed in my mind. It's funny because I've been saying it since 2017. Right. It's just, we talked about this a lot in the bear market though. I remember it was like, how is the flipping going to happen? We would always have these debates, and it's like, well, I mean, ETH has all these catalysts coming, and 1559 was still in its infancy, and staking was like, we knew what was happening, but we didn't know when, and people were like, well, what about the 4-year cycles, and then the bull market's going to come back? Is this all going to coincide with the bull market? And it's like, well, it can. Like, if the bull market comes back in 2020/21, this all coincides. So, but I don't know. I think. We knew all the catalysts were coming. We just didn't know the timing of it. Like the timing was very hard.
Right. And the catalyst, having the actual catalyst is one thing, but like it takes a moment for the market to actually like integrate these things and understand them. And like even when we knew, we were talking about proof of stake and like the reasons why it's bullish because of reduced issuance and also Ether lockup. We're talking about DeFi and why it's bullish, and we're talking about EIPY 1559 and why that's bullish. It took us a while to integrate all of these things together, right? And like we had the triple point asset thesis, which is inherently like an integration of all these things, but people weren't really able to articulate some of the numbers until we actually got closer to some of these things, and that's where Justin Drake comes in. Like I would like to know how much of this like ETH pump is specifically as a result of like Justin Drake coming to the table and like starting to be like a marketing and meme person, and it's like, here, you guys, like all of you like Ethereum marketers people are like missing out on this like through line, which is ultrasound money. Here it is. And then all of a sudden ETH just fucking runs. Like tip of the hat to Justin Drake, you know, praise. But like it takes a while for the market to really integrate everything. And it really feels like an equilibrium shift. We were talking about this in our episode with Vitalik, but in a completely different context about like, how like when people are coordinating and all of a sudden like people will stay coordinated, but then all of a sudden everything will break up at once, like, and everybody will run in different directions at once for in different contexts. And then it's like an equilibrium flip. Like people will be bearish, and then all of a sudden it takes like one single catalyst, and then all of a sudden it completely flips, and all of a sudden people are bullish. And I feel like that's what happened in the last like couple weeks or so. I feel like there's been an equilibrium flip with Ether.
Yeah, and I would say Justin Drake has definitely played a massive part in this. He articulates the case very, very well. Obviously, you know, being on Bankless is really great for him because you guys have a massive reach. So, and you've had him on three times now, or 4 times. Yeah, three times now. I just listened to the latest one yesterday, actually, and I like the sound effects.
Yeah,
I was losing it every time the sound effects were going on, and I was on my walk, and people were looking at me. They must have thought I was an idiot. But but on that note as well, just like the fact that, you know, I think we've known about these things for a while. Like I shared on Twitter the other day a blog post that I did in January of 2019, where I was actually talking about the issuance drop that staking would bring back then. I wasn't talking about 1559 because that came out in April of 2019. It was first published then. So, but the thing is, it's funny because a lot of these things were known for so long, and yet the market took so long to price it in. Now, whether that's because at the time it was a bear market, right, in January of 2019, I think that played a big part in it. But also it was an awareness thing. Like how many, you know, back then it was really only us, like small core group of Ethereans that were actually beating the drum here. And also, even if you were promoting 1559, the fees were really low. So it didn't really mean much. Like you could still get a transaction in for like less than 5 Gwei. Like 1 Gwei was like, you know, not unheard of.
1 Gwei was the default, and 100 Gwei seems absolutely insane. Like no way would Gwei ever get to 100. Like, no, we'll just 1 Gwei, just send. And like, so at that point in time, it was like, well, I could see why, like, you know, people aren't really projecting this in. Like, what is ETH burn when there's no fees? Like, what? All of a sudden, then DeFi summer comes and like, oh, right, I forgot about how incredibly constrained the Ethereum blockchain is.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people didn't realize that Ethereum, isn't actually very scalable at layer 1, like 15 transactions per second on average. And, you know, we can get that up sometimes by raising the gas limit, but obviously we don't want to do too much of that. But yeah, I think that played into it for sure. But still, like the high fees have been around since DeFi summer last year, which was June. Compound launched their liquidity mining program. And then people still didn't clue into this until recently. I think it really happened when it was approved, because I think people were like, oh, well, you know, we don't know if this is going to go into the network or not. It's still like in limbo. And it's like, well, I mean, the funny thing is that I think 1559 might have been in limbo maybe sometime last year, like earlier in last year, before Tim Biko took over as kind of like a lead there. I think you could say it was in limbo because it wasn't moving as fast as we wanted it to. But then you kind of like had over the last few months where people were still saying, oh, it's in limbo, we don't know. And we're like, well, we do know. We know what's going to happen. Like everyone wants this. It's just a matter of, you know, going through the motions. So I mean, I think, you know, as much as we can say that there was alpha early on, there was, but the real alpha was like having conviction that this stuff would actually happen. Like it's all well and good to know about it, but yeah, it's got to actually happen.
Right. Yeah. And at some point the market had to figure out that it needed to, like we've been saying, like no one was allocated to Ether, right? Except for like the core convicted believers. Therefore, with any sort of reduction in execution risk, all of a sudden everyone is underweight Ether just because like that's what it was. And like Suzu and Kyle Davies on the on Bankless, they talked about how like in 2018, like they were bullish Ether in the long term, but like in the short term, we had like massive ICO treasuries who literally didn't know what Ether was or what to do with it, and they had salaries they need to pay. Like, of course, Ether is getting dumped down to $80. Like, we didn't even have EIP 1559 at the beginning of 2018, right? So it's really you would have to have like kind of trusted in 2017, 2018 that like the Ethereum developers and Ethereum, the community, the nebulous thing called Ethereum at large, would really just figure it out. Like you kind of needed to have taken it at faith on that point in time. Now you don't really have to take it on faith anymore. Like you said, EIP 1559 is approved. We have the beacon chain. People are starting to price in people are starting to price in reduced execution risk significantly.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And I think the point that Kyle and Sue made about the ICO treasuries, I mean, I listened to the podcast as well. That was very salient. That was something that, me being like relatively noobish in 2018 still, because I'd only been around for a year in the Ethereum space, I didn't realize like how bad that sell pressure would be. And in hindsight, it was pretty obvious because there was millions and millions and millions, especially EOS, right? Block One, who raised all that ETH. They had no allegiance to Ethereum. They were trying to kill it with EOS. And they're Bitcoin maxis because they put it all into BTC, or a lot of it into BTC in the end. And they've got a huge BTC war chest now. But essentially, yeah, in hindsight, like you could look at that and be like, okay, well, the sell pressure from this is going to be immense. And I don't think anyone thought it was going to go to $80. I don't know any one person that I spoke to or saw on Twitter or saw anywhere that ever mentioned a double-digit Ethereum again, besides Arthur Hayes. He was the only one that I saw that called for it, and kudos to him for calling it. At the same time, I think he had a bit to play in that because he can, he was a big part of BitMEX back then, and BitMEX was huge back then. But I think at the end of the day, it was a very kind of healthy shakeout of these ICO treasuries. It needed to happen. It got all of the weak hands out because, and as you said, all the non-believers, all the people who literally, we're kind of like wanting to divest and we're like worried about their treasury assets and things like that. So I totally get that. But now, I mean, it's like completely opposite now because you don't have these massive ICO treasuries or these massive pools of ETH that are waiting to be sold. You have these massive pools of ETH that are not going to be sold, like staking, right? Like locked in DeFi. I think there's an actual permanent cohort of ETH that is just locked in DeFi forever, right? It's just people borrowing against their
frozen ETH.
Yeah, it's just exactly frozen it like permanently and just like sitting there and just never going to exit because it's just these big whales who have no desire to exit. They can just borrow against it. Like why wouldn't they do that? So I think that's a large part of it. And then we have 1559 kicking in soon, which is just going to delete supply, which I mean, I still think people are sleeping on this. Like the fees, like even in a normal state now, the fees are like 100 Gwei is like the normal kind of price. It's like $20 million or something a day still. It's like, and then when you have like real market mania, this stuff can go up to like way more. And then that's why Justin Drake looks at the moving averages, which is still putting us in a deflationary ETH with proof of work issuance. If we once we go to proof of stake issuance, like things just get really insane. And that's what I think. Like I put a tweet out last night about this saying, people just still don't realize the impact this is going to have. There's not much ETH for sale. This isn't saying you have to burn 50% of the ETH supply before you get a price impact. There's like 12% of ETH on centralized exchanges right now. There is not much left out there.
Right. Yeah, dude. And it's a really good point to use the moving averages of the ETH gas price. Because if you look at the log chart for the ETH average Gwei price per transaction is just up and to the right, as you would imagine, right? Like we were sustaining 300 to 400 Gwei for like 4 days earlier this week, which was absolutely insane. But like, what do you think we seem to have like, I feel like plateaued in the 1 to 200 like Gwei range, but I feel like could in theory like start to see another leg up and start to like plateau at something like much higher, like 300 to 500 Gwei. How do you feel about that?
It depends on the people paying the fee, right? Like there's a certain fee amount that's going to lock most people out. And then as the fees get more expensive, more people get locked out. And then eventually you only have a small pool of people that can afford the fees. So I think at this stage, between 100 and 200, you still have early ETH buyers who have made a lot of money, who are happy paying these fees, right? You still have whales that are always happy paying them. And you still have like arbitrage bots and stuff that I think that the bots are going to be happy paying whatever fee as long as they're making a profit, right? They'll be happy to make even like a 0.01% profit or whatever, as long as they're making a profit. So, but as we keep going up, it's going to price out it's going to continue to price out people. It's going to price, I think eventually it's going to price out like the early ETH investors who have made a lot of money. The whales, depending on the size of them, it might even price them out.
Right.
But the long-term goal of Ethereum layer 1 has always been to be just a proof verification layer for layer 2s, right?
Right.
And the layer 2s are going to be paying these fees and have no issue paying them because they're going to be making enough from their layer 2 in terms of like whether it's making small amounts of fees in aggregate, which equal like large amounts of fees,
Right.
or it's like some kind of other way to kind of pay these fees. Like they're happy to do this, and the whales and the arbitrage bots on layer 1 again happy to do this. So I think that's how it's going to shake out. And I agree with you. I do think 100 to 200 is not going to last. Definitely not as more layer 2s come online because they're competing for the same block space that we are. And then, as I said, they're not constrained. Right. They're really not constrained by this sort of stuff. There's so much money that they are going to have to pay these fees. And at the end of the day, they can make that back. I mean, from the layer 2, and I've seen Loopring doing this, where Loopring charges like a really small fee, but then they use that to pay for Ethereum L1 security, which is just like the way to do it. And I've been using the analogy that L2 is a user wrapper. So you can have like millions of users in there and then just one transaction. And that's the real innovation, I think. And the real reason why, fees can go pretty high on layer 1, but it won't affect end users. And that's the real bull case, I think. And that's what a lot of people seem to miss as well.
Yeah, my mental model for this is that like the Ethereum L1 is just like this big like traffic controller between all the L2s, right? And it's like, oh, you L2 deposits, withdrawals over to this L2. Like here you are, like big shuffler of value, right? And like the payers of the L2 is largely going to be like obfuscated, and it's really going to feel like robots are paying for these fees, or at least that's like the Hopium metaphor, where like you live on optimism, you make a bunch of trades, and then you hop into like the withdrawal period or whatever, and like you pay your share amongst like 1,000 other individuals, right? And so that gas cost gets really mitigated. Or you go from connects and you actually don't even touch the network, right? Like final settlement will again like happen only by whales and by contracts. And so we're all is everyone here ready, all listeners and viewers ready to go be living on L2, because we're all about to move to L2. Like that's perhaps the permanent dwelling of all future DeFi users.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think for people to be ready, two key things have to happen, or for people to want to move to L2 in a big way. Two key things have to happen. It needs to have the apps or like app parity, or like liquidity parity with layer 1, or at least like enough liquidity to service these users. And you need to have the core apps on there. You need to have the AAVEs, the compounds, the makers, the uniswaps, all of that stuff. You need to have the core apps. And then on top of that, you need to have these centralized exchange bridges in and out, because I think that's very and other ways of getting onto L2, like Seller Network has a really cool public transport system that they're calling it, where it's batch transactions from L1 to L2, so there's only one gas fee paid, which I thought was really, really cool. You have other things like Stark, we're working on tapping into L1 liquidity from L2, and you also have OKX, who's a massive centralized exchange that recently announced they're going to be doing deposits and withdrawals to Arbitrum, which is going live soon. They announced that their developer mainnet is on May 28th. So that's mainnet Ethereum. And the reason they're doing a developer mainnet is because they want to get the apps on there first, so users actually have a reason to go to Arbitrum. Because if you're an L2, like a generalized L2, and there's no apps, then what's the reason to go there? There's none, right? It's like going to a dead city. It's the same thing as like going to one of these other ghost chains or blockchains that have nothing on there.
Ghost
right? Yeah. So from that perspective, I think that's very, very important, and that's what's going to happen, and it's going to happen. It's just we're still so early. Like people think that because the prices are relatively high, we're late in the game. We're not, because the adoption game is the prices always get ahead of the adoption, always. And I don't think that's true for. I don't think that's true yet. I think it's true for a lot of platforms, but for Ethan, I mean, Bitcoin, I think that they're fine, but a lot of the other platforms are really overvalued. I mean, I don't understand how Cardano is still like $63 billion market cap. It has no smart contracts. It has no usage. It has literally nothing going on, and it's just a future potential.
Right.
And in bull markets, that works. Narratives, marketing, promises, they work. And not to say that some of the stuff in DeFi isn't overvalued as well, based on like a usage perspective. Some of it is. But like, and I mean, Dogecoin's at 70 billion. I don't know. Like, who's to say if that's overvalued or undervalued? Like, it's a meme coin. Like, it's Doge. It's not trying to be anything. Yeah. Like, and that's the thing. So from that perspective, I just think, people need to realize, like, on the usability side and on the utility side, we're still so early. And these other platforms that are promising cheaper transactions, faster transactions, like, whatever. I can go through a couple of them. Cardano, no smart contracts, so they kind of promise anything. Polkadot, also very early on, they didn't have parachain functionality at the main kind of like innovation that they're claiming, right? Just scrolling through the list here, like Ethereum Classic, dead. VE Chain, I know nothing about it, but like I don't know anyone who's really using it.
It's the delegated proof of stake supply chain system.
Exactly.
Supply
like
chain blockchains have never ever worked.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't make sense to have a whole blockchain centered around that. Solana and EOS, Solana sacrifices decentralization from scale, still having problems getting usability. It's very early. It's super early. It doesn't even have a proper wallet that works very well yet. EOS is EOS. And then Polygon, which is Polygon is actually, it's been having a really great run lately. It's at $10 billion cap. And I'm an advisor, so I should really not really talk about the price of Polygon. Sure. I don't want to influence anyone. But I think in terms of usage, if you look at Polygon's usage, and Polygon isn't like its own, technically it has its own validator set, but it actually commits itself to Ethereum and runs its staking logic on Ethereum. So it's not like one of these other blockchains, but it has like so much usage, like way more than any of these other platforms
that I use on a daily basis, and it fits fucking awesome. Gas fees are nothing, and and transactions are instant. And it's like, oh, this is fucking fantastic. Like, it feels like when I was using Binance back in 2017. It's like, oh, great, instant verifications, fantastic. On the Cardano note, I think the most bearish event in Cardano's history will be the delivery of smart contracts. Because as soon as they have to like take themselves seriously and be like, oh yeah, yay, we have smart contracts now. Like, oh, now we have to like catch up to Ethereum, like, which had smart contracts in 2015. Like, it's going to be the biggest sell of the news event, and in my opinion, not financial advice, but like as soon as things become real for some of these communities with vaporware, and all of a sudden when they go from vaporware to realware, then like everyone sobers up really fast and be like, oh, we have so much more work to do. We just got to the starting line. I'm calling that here.
Yeah. I agree with you definitely on that. I think that it's funny because there are people who genuinely believe that as soon as Cardano gets smart contracts, all the developers are going to go and build stuff on there. And I don't know if I've said this on the live stream before, but I've said it like many times before elsewhere. I have never in my entire like lifetime in this industry met one developer who has said that they're thinking about building on Cardano. Not one. And I have spoken to a lot of developers. Like, I would say at this point, it's probably thousands of developers I've spoken to, and not one of them have said Cardano. They've said everything else. Like, they've said, oh, Polkadot, EOS, even EOS back in the day, right? Or Solana or whatever, but never Cardano. Never, and that to me is the clearest signal that there is just literally nothing going to happen on this. This is a promise chain. I know that there's like peer review and like all this good tech and stuff. And maybe the tech is good. Maybe it is like, valuable, but that's not the point, right? The point is that it's so far behind, Ethereum and like even the other chains. It's so far behind that I just don't see a world where that even like where Cardano does anything other than like exist as a promise chain. And it can exist as that for quite a while. For some reason, people love promise chains.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Promise chains. I'm trying to pull up a tweet from my buddy Michael Wong. Here we go. Let's see if I can copy right into the Zoom chat. But I can just read it out. He goes, and we talked about this in the Bankless weekly roll up today. He goes, no fees, no validators. No validators, no security. No security, no developers. No developers, no users. No users, no fees. And so like this is what a crypto economic system is. He just went from like start to end, and then back at the start again of what a crypto economic system is. And like starting a crypto economic system, it's hard because it's a chicken and egg problem. And like that's the main difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum, and why we always look at that crypto fees page, and why Ethereum people are like, yay, we look at all the fees we're collecting, and everyone else who is new is like, oh, look at all the fees that they got just gouged out of users. But no, like it's a signal of the liveness of this crypto economic system. And so like if you don't even have smart contracts, you don't have fees, right? So like who's even going to secure this thing if they're not getting paid any fees? And if you're not secure, then why is anyone going to build on your shit? And if no one builds on your shit, then no users are going to use your shit, and then you don't have anyone paying any fees, so you don't have any fees being paid to the people keeping the thing secure. And so at this point, it's just like it's almost too late because you have to ask yourself, like, why would I deploy on anything else other than what's already a live system, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's true, and I think on that note as well, I struggle to find like why any of these other tokens will be fundamentally valuable if they don't generate like any type of fee revenue on their platforms, because they literally all advertise themselves based on the low fee thing and the fast transaction thing. So if they don't have that, then there's no use for them at the end of the day. Like
they don't have ultrasound money.
No, exactly. So, I mean, I've said this so many times. Like, for me, it's just a no-brainer for us to have an incredibly decentralized and secure base layer, and then just scale at layer 2. There is no point doing lots of scaling at layer 1, because then your asset is not going to be worth anything, and your network is going to be insecure, because your asset in the long run is something that people don't want to hold and don't want to, keep buying, whatever. And there's no demand for it. And like, yeah, people can say, oh, it's a staking asset. Like, but that's like a cycle. Like the staking people are being paid with block rewards, and on these networks, the block rewards are quite high because they don't have the fee revenue to make up for it, and they have no like burning of fees. Some of them do like Filecoin and whatnot, but like Filecoin is not a smart contract blockchain, it's a utility chain. It's very different. But like I think maybe Nia has it, but Nia doesn't, like, is a ghost chain as well, doesn't really do much transactions or whatever. But then again, the narrative just breaks down. If your only selling point, or the selling point that you've been going on for years, is fast and cheap transactions, and then you start becoming like expensive, well then, no one's gonna use you. Like BSC actually started becoming somewhat expensive because they were hitting the limits that they had set. Well, I mean,
God,
relatively,
that state growth must be so high.
It is. But like relatively, I think it got up to maybe a couple of dollars for a Uniswap trade, right? Okay, that's cheap compared to Ethereum, and that's fine. But the thing is, if you're running on like ultra cheap transactions, even a couple of dollars is too much, right? For your chain.
Right.
And it wouldn't stop at a couple of dollars. If BSC kept getting usage and they didn't raise the gas limit, then they're going to run into the same problems as Ethereum at the end of the day. And they raise the gas limit. I mean, it's already centralized and whatever, but so from that perspective, it boggles my mind when I think it's just people don't understand, right? People don't want to understand when they have bags, and it's not that people don't understand. It's just that they at this point in time they don't want to. And if maybe one day they will, and maybe a lot of people will. I think they do. I think there's one person that I'm aware of on Twitter who was actually a massive EOS bull during 2018, 19, and 20, maybe 20. And no matter how many times that I tried to explain to him, and other people tried to explain to him, that EOS was a dead end, he wouldn't believe us. Now he's a massive ETH maxi, like huge ETH maxi. So
I think I know who you're talking about. I think I know. I think I know that guy. Yeah.
I don't want to call him out, like,
exactly.
Yeah, just like maybe it just takes this time for people to clue into this and to understand it and to come to terms with it.
They're hard concepts to understand, right? Because like crypto is so multidisciplinary, right? If you don't like figure out most of the disciplines that make up crypto, like you can't really put the pieces together. I keep coming back to this metaphor of like a Sudoku puzzle. Like when you come into the world of crypto and you don't know anything, you have this very empty Sudoku puzzle, and also it's like a 5 out of 5 difficulty Sudoku puzzle, right? So you come in with like some like prior knowledge about basic finance, basic economics, but even like people who are extremely majored in finance in college, that doesn't mean anything. Like I actually kind of attest to like one of the reasons why crypto resonated with me so well is I took 0 finance and econ classes in college. So I came in with a blank slate. Like that kind of actually maybe helped me to some degree because I didn't have to unlearn things that were irrelevant or just like jaded. And so like you come in and you fill out the Sudoku puzzle, but it takes a while. It took me, like, I'm still learning shit. I'm still filling in my Sudoku puzzle. Mine's not even done. And so it takes you a while to really fill in all the pieces to really get there. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, it also takes the market validating your views as well, and for people to like, I guess, like come on board too. I think with as I was saying earlier, like you needed conviction for things like 1559 or early on. You needed conviction for staking. We knew staking was going to happen, but we just didn't know when. And then think about how much misinformation and disinformation there is out there of like there's large Bitcoin maxi accounts. Like they have a lot of followers, and they were saying for many years, and they still are, that Ethereum will never ship proof of stake, right? And now they're saying, oh, it's a separate chain. They're never going to ship the merge. It's like, how can you say this? Like we've got test nets with the merge already going. There's transactions happening on these test nets.
Well, now it's their brand.
Real tech. Like exactly. It's their brand. They cannot go back on it now. So from that perspective, there are literally potentially like hundreds of thousands of people, maybe not that much, but like a lot of people that are being completely misled here, that to get out of that bubble is going to take a very long time. I was actually sitting on a Bitcoin Maxi clubhouse room a couple of days ago. There was like some weekly meetup. And oh my God, their talking points have not changed since like the early days. It's exactly the same. And it's just like straight up. All they do is they just throw out, oh, Ethereum is centralized. They give no evidence to back it up. They say, oh, it's all on AWS. No evidence, nothing, right? They don't back up any of their claims. They just claim things as if they were true.
It's like a
when I call something centralized,
sounds like a coke room.
It is a cope room, but like when I call something centralized, and I'm very careful about what I call centralized, but when I call like BSC centralized, I mean, that's verifiably true, right? There is no debate there. Like 21 nodes, even if the 21 nodes were quote unquote distributed or not part of Binance's control, that's not enough nodes to be like decentralized, like at all.
Well, also that's not even all the conversations about decentralization, because they have such high block sizes. That's a completely different centralization vector. So we have centralization on multiple fronts.
Exactly. So that's why I'm pretty careful in what I call centralized, because it's definitely a term you have to use, in this space, like lightly, depending on who you're talking to. But yeah, I just think from that perspective, it's just amazing to me that these people just like, I mean, it's cope, yes, because the ratio has been going up, but it's also just like, it's the willingness to keep telling yourself the same lie, right? And keep telling yourself, like, even if, like, to me, wouldn't you see the signal of the ratio going up as like, okay, well, maybe there is something to this? Well, no, because they're so entrenched in their views and they're so like entrenched in their own brand that they can't change. And a lot of them actually have deep-seated hate for Ethereum. Like when I talk about other platforms, other blockchains, as if like I don't like them, it's not that I hate them. I've got nothing against them. I don't have like this burning hatred. I just don't think that they're a viable platform. I don't think that there's something good or good technology. But these people literally hate Ethereum, and it's
visceral. Yeah,
it is visceral. And when you hear them talking about it, it's like you kind of get like, I mean, I'm not gonna say you get scared, but you're like, how far will these people go with their hate? Are they gonna try and do something like, I remember people speculating on Twitter that Vitalik needs bodyguards because like he's a target, and I mean he is a target. Like, are some of these people crazy enough to do something like that? Because they believe that, and ironically, if something happened to Vitalik and then Ethereum kept chugging and Ethereum kept developing and going along, it would kill all the, it's centralized around Vitalik things, right? Like, and they would, it's just ironic because they would have a piece in that. But yeah, really, when you really think about it, it gets kind of scary, I think.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the Bitcoiners, I've never met a hostile Bitcoiner in real life. I went to a Bitcoin beefsteak event in 2019, I think, and met a lot of Bitcoiners, and I was very much obviously the Ethereum, because this was at CK's rooftop at his apartment in San Francisco, so it was all Bitcoiners, right? And so like there was some amount of like friendly but also not completely friendly jabs, like just jabs here and there, but that was when the ETH BTC ratio was like 0.03, and so I'm about to go into the Bitcoin 2021 conference in Florida with an ETH BTC ratio of 0.08, and that's going to be a very different story. But like I've never met a hostile Bitcoiner in real life. I think they kind of generally keep their hostility towards crypto Twitter, but there are some extremely hostile things about crypto Twitter. Like some Bitcoin maxi was like, I can't tell who I want to punch in the face more, either you or Ryan Sean Adams. And it's like, oh sweet dude, like have less hate in your life, man. But like I said, Bitcoiners are a cohort of love inside themselves. They kind of give it to themselves, very loving people for themselves, but like not for extra communities. And so like there is a little bit of conflict there.
I actually, on that note, I remember saying to someone a while ago, I think it was in 2019, they asked me like why Bitcoiners are so toxic. It's like, well, they're toxic to us. They're not toxic to themselves, right? Like if you're in the in group, Bitcoiners are amazing, right? Like
yeah, they love
Bitcoiners
you.
are fine.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But if you're in the out group, yes, they're
Yeah.
they're toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the clearest delineation here is and the explanation as to why people think like, how could someone be so toxic? It's like, well, because they're not toxic to themselves. Like you can keep a group and a tribe, if we're going to use that term, going very easily because of the fact that like, you know, they're not toxic to themselves. It's when they start like fighting amongst themselves that things start to splinter. And I do think there's been a lot of that over the last few months where there's been moderate Bitcoiners who see the value in Ethereum and then they're kind of like debating with the maxis or whatever. And there's been like a splintering of groups in there. And I think that's why Bitcoin's social layer is like completely broken, is that they're, unless you're talking about Bitcoin, unless you toe the party line, you're in the out group essentially. Even if you like Bitcoin and you do stuff for Bitcoin, you are the out group, which
dude, like
I think
Nick Carter said the wrong thing one time and he just had like a week of getting bombarded by Bitcoiners. And like, it's Nick Carter. Like he's fighting the hardest fights in the world for Bitcoin and you guys are still out to get him. Like, what the fuck? Leave him alone.
And they turned on Andreas Antonopoulos a while ago as well, who's been like, you know, one of the top educators for Bitcoin. And because he wrote a Mastering Ethereum book, I was like, wow, like this is insane.
Anyways, let's look at some charts instead of shitting on other communities, which I know we tend to do a lot. Let's look at some charts.
Let me bring up the charts.
Which one are you going to bring up first?
I want to bring up BTC first because I think that not that I really follow it too much. There you go. Can you see that?
Yes. One moment. I'm gonna fuck some shit up really quick, and then I think that'll be good. Okay. Cool. Yeah, we're good to go.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, dude! Look at that 20 week moving average. All right, that was God. It has been so long since Bitcoin has touched the 20 week moving average. Not since like October. Holy hell.
Yeah, and the reason why you want to watch the 20 week moving average is because a lot of people consider this the bull market support line, where if it closes below this, for extended period of time, you can say, I mean, for at least like 2 to 3 weeks, I would say, you would say like the bull market is over. Because if we scroll out and we look at what happened in 2017 here, you can see basically, I got to scroll out a bit more here. 2017, basically, or even 2016, when the bull market started again, it tested this line, right? And rode it. It never fell below it. It tested it here, and then it broke below, right? It tried to go at it again, then it got rejected. So the 20 week moving average turned into resistance, and then obviously we had a bear market. So that's why people looking at this and like, okay, well, if Bitcoin can hold this line and grind it, that's really, really good for non-Bitcoin things. That's why people are calling for a DeFi season. They're calling for like alt season, whatever. Because if Bitcoin can just go sideways and ride this line up, all is well for the rest of the ecosystem. But if Bitcoin falls below it, then yeah, it's not fun. It's not party time anymore.
Right. I'm very happy that we have touched it because I don't think we're breaking down below it in my opinion, because I'm generally a bullish person. And so actually on like a risk, and I heard Ledger say this on his podcast, so I'm just copying him here, on a risk adjusted basis, like Bitcoin feels really safe, right? Like it feels like it's pretty close to its relative bottom. It's at this very historically safe spot. And I like a good healthy tap of the 20 week moving average feels really good right now. And I think that Bitcoin could have like a moment here.
Yeah. I mean, it's been brutalized for a while, right? It's been just trending sideways since like February. I mean, going up and down between like the 50 and 60K range here. And then ETH has had like an amazing run, and the ratios had an amazing run. But if we look at like just to put in context how brutalized BTC has been, here's the dominance chart.
Oh my God!
Like this is Bitcoin.
Can you move everything over just a little bit to the left?
Like that?
Yeah, perfect, right there.
Yeah. So, like, look at this. That's 9 straight red weekly. Like that's the most it's ever fallen in a row.
Right. Like we were talking before the show, but like it kind of feels like a buy right now.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean for traders, like traders definitely look at this stuff. And if you see like we're coming up towards like key support, because the last time it felt like this, it bounced off this, right? And we're coming down, and it's been so brutalized. And you know, you usually want to buy assets when they're not looked at by a lot of people. And right now, Bitcoin's the boring and the dead asset, according to a lot of people. And yes, like as Ethereans, we're really excited because the ratio is going up and stuff like that. But you know, just from a technical kind of standpoint, this is really bad. This looks like Bitcoin's just dying or gonna die. And in reality, that's not how it happens. Maybe the flippening happens over the long term, but in the short term, we could see like maybe it takes another couple of weeks, but you know, when it happens, we could see a very violent bounce, and BTC could just go straight to 100K.
Yeah. And like Bitcoin is due. It's getting like, it needs to really figure out this GBTC premium thing. But really, I feel like the GBTC premium and the lack of the ETF is really the only two things holding Bitcoin back. That is within like quote unquote Bitcoin's control, right? The whole energy debate, that's outside of Bitcoin's control. That's never going away. But the takeaway that I have here is that when the legacy world finally comes around and starts to pay attention to crypto, Bitcoin dominance falls. That's when Bitcoin dominance makes new lows every step of the way. When the universe wants to pay attention to crypto, it doesn't want Bitcoin dominance high. It wants Bitcoin dominance low, which tells me that in a world where crypto is mainstream, Bitcoin dominance is going to be low. Like, I'm sorry, hyper Bitcoinization is not happening, because whenever the grander world pays attention to crypto, Bitcoin dominance finds new lows. And so like that's to me like a very strong takeaway, because when people want crypto, they want things that are more interesting than it. And like perhaps like the biggest argument why hyper Bitcoinization will never happen is because people want alternatives just naturally. Like when you go to a restaurant, you like options, right? And like I guess it's a conversation of money. Like you want just one money, but like no, I mean, maybe you want one money, but like you still want multiple assets. You still want, like, you can have one money and still have Bitcoin dominance still be really, really low.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And, you know, I do think that over the longer term, BTC dominance, I mean, I don't see how it goes back up to like 75% here,
No.
even in a bear market. I don't see how that happens. I think
go to monthly
a lot of
candles.
People, monthly's going to look pretty hilarious too.
Oh, wow. Holy hell.
Yeah, this goes back to what?
That's not the Bitcoin dominance chart that I remember seeing.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, it looks pretty hilarious, but I guess the same thing happened in 2017, right? But I think,
go log.
I shouldn't say this.
Log scale.
This is log.
Oh my god.
It's because of this. It's because at the start, like it was near 100%, and like we had such a brutal drop when ETH had that run in 2017. I mean, yeah, log and linear look the same.
Okay,
This is really, really brutal. And that's, I mean, could be a good like short-term thing for traders to take advantage of. But, you know, if we look at the ratio though, like the ETH BTC ratio,
feel things in my loins.
It looks pretty fun, but like it does look like this, right? Like 2017.
Right.
But that means it can keep going up quite a while. But I don't think we see this again. I really do not think we see an ETH BTC downtrend like this again, because Ethereum as a platform and ETH as an asset is sufficiently different and differentiated from Bitcoin
and
now.
Mature.
And it has its own value drivers. It's not just all hype and promises. It is actual fundamental value from DeFi staking in 1559, which is like the three core pillars there. So I don't see how we, like, yes, it's not going to go up forever, but I don't see how we get this again. Like this brutal 90% more drop in the ETH BTC ratio. I don't know. I just personally don't see that happening.
When back in 2017, I can't actually like remember why I was so bullish on like Ethereum's app layer. Like what did we have in 2017? We had like Augur like in development. Like we didn't even get Augur until like late 2018 or like early 2019 or something. Like we had Golem, which was like, I guess I don't remember why I'm excited about like GPU cloud mining services in a decentralized fashion. Like don't remember why I was bullish about just Ethereum's app layer at all. I'm calling it app layer because we didn't even call it DeFi back then. Now we just call it DeFi. All of a sudden, like there's extremely salient and strong reasons as why you should be bullish on DeFi right now. And because like I use Ethereum all the time, and back in 2017, I never used Ethereum, only to like speculate on ICOs, which were promising the world, but in hindsight made no sense.
Exactly. And you know, it's funny when you think about it, Ethereum was the promised chain in 2017. Right? Right. Like I'm gonna say that now. Like
No,
even
that's
though
right.
like
That's right.
Ethereum delivered, right? Ethereum delivered on all its promises. It was the promise chain
It was
because
the
there was
promise
none
chain.
of this stuff live yet. And now Ethereum is the ship chain, right? It's the
Right.
thing that delivers. And
Right.
I think the ratio here, you could probably look at this as a signal for what happens to every other asset or every other blockchain asset against ETH, right?
Right.
Because I typically look at other assets against ETH. Some of them have performed. Like I think even Cardano has like this pattern that it likes, maybe on Binance, that it likes to play out
Oh,
the
that's
weekly.
a weird looking chart. Holy hell.
Yeah, like this is just literally like up and then down, up and then and down, and then up again and then down, right? So
Kind of looks like
I
it's
just
going
think
up.
that yeah, I guess. Like, I mean, it didn't really bounce off the support here that it was trying to hold. But I mean, generally, like, I think these kind of assets get brutalized in down markets much more than BTC and ETH do. Like, because people don't want to hold them, right? They want to hold them in the bull market for the trade.
Right.
They don't want to hold them in a down market when everyone's trying to flee to safer assets. And the safest assets are USD, ETH, and BTC, right? USD obviously.
The monies.
Yes, and but USD is actually less safe over the long term now because
Right.
of the inflation worries. So I don't know. I do think that during down markets, like people will go to USD, but they'll yield farm with it, so they'll stay on Ethereum, and they'll still be paying fees on Ethereum, which means that Ethereum ETH will keep getting burned because of 1559. Like even in bear markets, it's bullish for ETH.
Okay, go look at let's look at
DPI.
Bitcoin Cash over Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Or let's look
yeah.
at EOS over Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, actually, recently that looks a bit better. Maybe Bitfinex. Yeah.
Yeah.
Say,
So
okay.
oh wow, that did spike at the end. That's what
This is-
Bitcoiners wanted ETH BTC to look like.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But in a bull market, short-term stuff is traders, speculators.
Right.
They Block One announced some exchange that they're launching. I'm sure they're going to be trying to pump EOS up as much as they can.
Right.
Anyway, I do think that like you're going to see reversals here, right? During manias, because I actually think that if we have like a DeFi season now, and then like we have another Bitcoin run to like over 100K, and then that peters out there, and we have like a quote unquote alt season, you're gonna see some stuff that's gonna make you sick. Like I really do believe so, because traders and speculators don't care and aren't loyal and don't care if these things are complete shit. If it looks good on a chart, they're going to trade it. That's as simple as that, right?
Yep. Plus, there's straight up like 2017 flashbacks that, and I'm not talking about like the individual, but like the market at large will have like, EOS and Cardano are pumping simultaneously. Let's also pump Litecoin and like Dentacoin because of 2017 flashbacks. Like that's what happened the last time these things pumped. Like what are the other tokens that also pumped? Like 2017 flashbacks. The markets behave like this in weird ways.
Exactly. And I think, you know, what's funny? I think a clearer picture of this is DPI ETH here.
I called the bottom.
Yes.
I am 3 days into a correct calling of the bottom. I'm
yes.
So hopefully it holds.
Yes. No, I think it will. I think this is the first strength that DeFi has had against ETH in a while. Like you can see, like it's just been trending down a lot.
Yep.
I think that just because DeFi is going up doesn't mean ETH can't go up.
Sure.
I think ETH's going to continue to trend up. But the only thing that's going to stop this train is if Bitcoin wakes up. If Bitcoin wakes up, this party's over, like completely over. But
and if it did, it would make a lot of sense.
I mean, it would. But as I said, I think that Bitcoin can ride that 20-week moving average for a little while. I actually think that it's here. I think that Bitcoin is currently here, which was the last DeFi season during September and October here. I do think that we're going to get this for a few weeks. And then DeFi is going to run DeFi for a few weeks. DeFi could like go back up to this range. And then, Bitcoin dominance will fall a bit more. Maybe it wants to test this kind of bottom at 37%-ish.
That is Bitcoiner capitulation right there. I guess that would be a capitulation reversal. And I could see that playing out. Like obviously not investment advice. I don't trade, but I do look at the macro trends, and I think the macro trend is that people want DeFi right now. DeFi has been brutalized for so long. Bitcoin has probably a couple more weeks left of this, and then Bitcoin will do a god candle, I reckon. The reversal on Bitcoin is going to be pretty biblical because people are going to be underexposed to Bitcoin, and traders are going to pile in, and I do think we're going to see that. And then I don't think that's bearish for ETH USD. I think ETH USD will go up with Bitcoin USD, but the ratio might take a little bit of a beating.
but long term, it's all fine. This is just short term stuff.
Let's pull up the weekly ETH US dollar chart.
All right,
Haven't even looked at ETH yet.
Yeah, I mean,
Because,
we know
the weekly chart, non-log.
Non-log.
I want to feel some pain. Oh my God, it's scary. Oh, it's so scary. It's so
This is
scary.
why we don't look. This is why we don't look at linear, because it's not a very accurate representation, because it's not taking into account the magnitude of the moves.
God, holy shit! The 20-week moving average is moving up so fast. Oh
It is.
God.
It is. It's still only at 2K though, which is hilarious. ETH is actually like 3 times its old all-time high now, which is what Bitcoin was at before it stopped pumping at like 60K or whatever, 65K. Right. But ETH still feels like it's got more to go, because Bitcoin was pumping on events, right? It was pumping in reaction to events like the treasuries and the public companies and all that sort of stuff. ETH is pumping on catalysts that haven't happened yet, right? And
of
ETH
which
is
we
also
have
pumping
many.
Yes, exactly. And institutional money is coming into ETH too. But I don't think that that's a bearish thing. And then once they announce it, it's going to be it. I think that 1559 and the merger are 2 massive catalysts that are going to happen to keep driving ETH up. And also the all the DeFi activity, all the DeFi growth, and the layer 2 stuff is just like on top of that. So yeah, that's I think that's the key difference between BTC and ETH, is that BTC doesn't have any catalyst besides an ETF in the US. Right. That's the only catalyst it has, and like some more companies adding it to its balance sheet. But now ETH has that, right? And ETH has much more than that to drive value to it. So I don't know, not to say that Bitcoin can't go up. It surely can. There's a lot of Bitcoin supporters and there's a lot of people who will buy Bitcoin. But for me, this is why I've never held it, because ETH is just like so much better than it on every front, like in my opinion.
I hate to say it, and I don't think Bitcoin kind of deserves the anti-climate change like branding as it does have, but I think even bigger than the merge, bigger than the EIP 1559 is the fact that Ethereum, at least in the short term, over the long term, those things are fundamentals. Therefore, those things are the entire case for Ethereum. But in the short term, like the next 6 months, Ethereum, if it can, which I don't think it has yet because it's proof of work, but if institutions are doing their due diligence, they are probably finding out that like Ethereum is going to be the green crypto. It's going to be the green crypto. And it's going to be the green crypto that's also capturing an insane amount of fees. And so like
exactly,
we've seen a ton of institutional money come in, and that's perhaps the reason why the Ether has had its recent price run. But I feel like those were the first institutions, and something that Suzu said on our show with him, and he says this everywhere, it's like price is the biggest predictor of price, right? And so if the first wave of institutions came and allocated their bags, the second wave of institutions are coming, because now everyone else, some institutions would be like, fuck, what do we do? Like, we got to get there. We got to get there. Van Spencer, who's an ETH bull just like us, on The Scoop, said that he's cognizant of an absolute mountain of cash on the sidelines waiting to get into Ether from institutions. So who knows how many more institutions we have in the chamber to really pump the ETH price, but like perhaps a few more.
Well, I think so. And I think the beautiful thing is that we don't rely on them as much as Bitcoin does, I believe. But also on the energy kind of thing, think about all the ESG portfolios that can't have Bitcoin in it, right? But we'll be able to have ETH in it once we move to proof of stake. That's a huge chunk of money that Bitcoin is just locked out of because of its energy footprint. And I've been saying this a lot lately, but I don't have any strong opinions on the energy debate. I don't know enough about it. But what I do know is that narratives can be more powerful than the reality. Even if the reality is that Bitcoin drives renewable energy research and Bitcoin's actually good for the environment, doesn't cause any adverse effects of climate change, even if all of that were true, it doesn't matter. It is a losing battle. There is no way that Bitcoiners are going to win this war at all. I don't believe they're going to win this.
It's almost to the point where like fighting it is really them losing.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's a noble thing for them to be fighting for. And kudos to people like Nick Carter who really do fight, like it's really hard.
Public servants.
But I really don't think that they've realized that this is a losing battle. This is not a war they can win. This is something that's going to be something they have to face head on. They're going to have to, they're going to try and convince the people that they need to convince. But at the end of the day, most of the world's population is going to look at the surface level numbers and they're going to think, wow, okay, this is using so much energy. And on that note, if we're talking about surface level stuff, to explain that Bitcoin's energy use is actually a good thing, it takes a long time, right? You have to show people all this research and whatever. To say to people, well, Ethereum uses proof of stake. It doesn't use proof of work. It doesn't actually use mining. That is just such a simple explanation and kills all of the doubts that people have, because they're like, oh, well, it's just using a normal computer. It's fine.
Just like how we were talking about how it's insanely hard to explain why Ethereum is what it is and all the Ghost chains aren't, and it just takes a while. It's the same thing with Bitcoin. That's a hard, complicated argument to make. And actually kind of not verifiable. I'm in the camp I want to believe. I'm not yet convinced.
I'm not convinced either. And it's very hard to verify. It's very hard to explain. It requires esoteric knowledge of so many different areas. It requires knowledge of how energy production works, of what percentage is produced by renewables and coal and all this sort of stuff. That's too much. The average person is not going to look that deep. The average person is going to say, is your chain like eco-friendly? And if it's on proof of stake, it is, right? And I know there's opportunists out there. There's other blockchains that have, distributed proof of stake that are saying that they're eco-friendly, whatever, and that's fine. But like, at the end of the day, that's just noise. Yeah, exactly. Like you're just noise at the end of the day. I think until the merger happens, Ethereum is just as guilty of this energy use as Bitcoin is. But once it happens, and we literally kill proof of work overnight, we are in such an amazing spot as from that. And because I've been saying like for a while that I think the energy thing is just going to get worse for Bitcoiners. It's just going to get much, much worse over the coming months. And there's going to be governments and nation states that will regulate this stuff. They haven't yet, but they will, because they'll get pressure from their constituents to do so. And even if that pressure is misguided, even if it is wrong to think that Bitcoin is bad for the environment, the narrative is more powerful than the reality. It doesn't matter. And that's just a sad reality. Not that I'm saying it's right or wrong. It's just the reality of it. And it's a reality that Bitcoiners are going to have to come to terms with, I think.
Right. There was Binance got a knock on the door from the IRS or some 3-letter agency of somebody. Anyways, the problem is that if you are instantiated in reality, in meat space, like, you are going to get regulated. And Bitcoin miners are going to get regulated because they have massive real meat space footprints, right? And so like there was a big criticism from the Bitcoiner world of Ethereum about how Ethereum is just going to be the KYC chain just because of the centralization of Ethereum. It's actually quite the opposite. Like, Bitcoin is going to become this highly institutionalized. Sorry, one sec. Oopsies.
Sorry, I should have warned you before I did that.
Now I got to get to where's OBS. The stream people are going to be freaking out. Oh.
It's working? It's fine?
Am I still live? My OBS is down.
Oh, shit. Sorry, dude.
I might have just killed the stream. It's actually quite the opposite. Why am I hearing myself? One sec. Oh, no,
sorry, I should have warned you before I killed it.
No, that wasn't you. That wasn't you.
Oh, okay.
Well, it happened to have it at the same time. I don't know how my OBS is down. Oh, no, it's still up.
Okay.
What the hell's going on? But my OBS is closed. It is, yeah. Well, now I need to change screens in OBS, but now OBS isn't open. And now I'm hearing you like 50 times. I need to quit this. My OBS is frozen. What the fuck? Well, okay. You know how we're going to fix this? Can you just share your screen again? Because that's how we're going to fix this.
Okay.
Sorry, stream.
Yeah, sorry, guys. I should have warned David before I did. I think this is the right tab. Hopefully. Yeah.
Okay, we're just gonna have the ETH price on the page for the rest of the stream. Okay, what were we talking about?
The energy use.
Yeah, right. And so like Bitcoin miners are going to be instantiated in meat space, and Bitcoin is literally going to be like there's going to be what's his face? Ben Hunt made a whole entire post on this where like Bitcoin is just going to become like institutionalized as an institutionalized asset because all on ramps are going to be centralized as they are. But then that's it, because you don't have an internal ecosystem. Like your BTC kind of stays on like, you don't have an internal part of Bitcoin to send it to, right? And so you're gonna have centralized on-ramps with largely centralized custody. Like Bitcoin is just gonna become this like, well, this Wall Street asset. And because of what Ethereum is, Ethereum has this place for you to escape to, which is the inside of Ethereum. And it's also not instantiated in meat space because of proof of stake. It's fulfilling all of the OG visions of cypherpunks.
and this is what we've been talking about for a long time in the Ethereum ecosystem, is that, well, how can you have a decentralized money in Bitcoin if all of it just sits on exchanges and the entire banking system for Bitcoin, the entire financial system just sits on centralized exchanges? And that's why, we've all been bullish on DeFi, is because we get that, insular economy where once you're on Ethereum, you can do whatever you want. There's no KYC or AML on these DeFi apps or anything like that. Yes, some of them have admin keys and stuff like that, but that's just for upgradability of the contracts. They never, none of them have abused it yet in any way. I mean, yes, they can abuse it in the future, but there's truly decentralized apps too, like Maker, for example, is like a set of governors and everything like that. It's very very decentralized. But yeah, that's why, and that's what we've been arguing for a long time now, is that you cannot have a decentralized money without a decentralized financial system backing it up.
So here's a hot take for you. Can you pull up the Doge chart? Because I'm about to start talking about Doge. Doge is the silver to Bitcoin's gold. And we all thought it was going to be Litecoin, but no, because Bitcoin is a meme and Litecoin not much of a meme. Dogecoin, big meme. Doge is a new store of value asset. I think Doge is getting repriced as a crypto money. I think we're going to have BTC, Ether, and Doge as the 3 crypto monies. That's my hot take.
I think so. And this is a log chart as well.
Oh my God.
And this is against USD. Against BTC, it looks even more hilarious. But I agree with you. I think that a money is a meme at the end of the day, and Doge has the best memes, the best kind of like, and the best, simplest narrative behind it, where literally it does nothing except exist. Like it's just a meme coin. And from that perspective, like a lot of people kind of like resonate with that. And obviously Elon Musk has been a flag bearer of it. I think maybe without Elon Musk, it wouldn't have pumped like this. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the catalyst was. What matters is that what narrative sticks. Right. And you can see that Doge has really not fallen like how people thought it would. People thought it would just go back way down, but no. It really hasn't. And the dog coin meme has obviously played out in bigger ways through these other dog tokens and stuff like that. Dude, but yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. And Dogecoin has been around for quite a while. It is merge mined with Litecoin. So that means it's like relatively secure. But
it's now the one providing the security to Litecoin. Litecoin is now more secure because of Doge.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, this is hilarious. Man, I think this is the funniest thing that's ever happened in crypto because it shatters a lot of different, I guess, like notions and narratives that Bitcoiners have been trying to push for so long, where they're saying, oh no, Bitcoin has the best memes. It's the best meme coin. That's actually a positive for Bitcoin. Well, I mean, you don't have a monopoly on meme coins, man. Like Doge is a better meme, like at the end of the day. So, and I remember like on the Kyle Davies and Sue podcast that you guys did, they were talking about how someone said to them, what's stopping Doge from flipping Bitcoin once ETH flips Bitcoin, right? What's stopping Bitcoin from just falling out of the top 10? Like nothing, because Bitcoin competes on a meme coin basis with everything else. Bitcoin competes on in the same arena. They think they don't, but they do. So I actually think that the top 10 will eventually not have Bitcoin in it at all. If it doesn't evolve, like
it'll be exactly productive asset DeFi tokens.
And the funny thing is that Bitcoin can stop this by evolving, and maybe they do evolve. Hasu had a good comment on Twitter the other day where he thinks that the flippening could be bullish for Bitcoin in that it pushes Bitcoiners to evolve, and I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Bitcoiners have it in their DNA. I don't think their social layer is built.
It would just hard fork. It wouldn't be. There would be no consensus. It would just hard fork.
Death by 1,000 forks. That's it.
Yep.
And he compared it to Ethereum by saying, by other chains popping up, it lit a fire under Ethereum's ass, and it did. But that's because Ethereum has that culture. Bitcoin does not have that culture or social layer to evolve. Ethereum has always evolved, and it is open to evolution. Bitcoin is static. It does not want to evolve. It wants to, it wants to evolve extremely slowly with very careful and calculated upgrades, which is fine, but that is not how you win. So I actually do think that once Bitcoin is flipped and permanently flipped and ETH is number 1, there is nothing stopping it from being flipped again. There is nothing keeping it at number 2. All narratives and notions of Bitcoin, hyper-Bitcoinization, Bitcoin being the, crypto being a winner takes most market, Bitcoin being the one and true asset, that all goes out the window. No one's going to believe that with Bitcoin at number 2. So yeah, it's a scary notion for Bitcoiners to consider, but I think it's a reality.
Yeah. Somebody in the comments is like, Bitcoin out of the top 10, like, what did I just hear? Like, I don't think Dogecoin is going to be in the top 10. But I think the world, for some reason, has just much more of an inclination to productive assets. So the top 10 is going to be Ether number 1, productive assets on DeFi tokens, like 2 through 10. And then we got like Doge and Bitcoin scattered throughout, like somewhere. And that's probably not for a really, really long time, at least in crypto terms. So 3 to 10 years. But yeah, like Bitcoin,
I would
Bitcoin
like
not
to
in
know
top
what
10.
I would like to know the arguments for why Bitcoin would stay in the top 10 if it gets flipped, if it's not number one. Because from where I'm sitting, every single argument for Bitcoin's value comes from the notion that it is the most valuable crypto asset, that is the best store of value, that it is the best money. But that ranking is, you know,
Go to
you
Eric
can't
Connor's
think it's
Twitter
the best.
account right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, go to Eric Connor's Twitter account.
I open Twitter. Man, God, if I start typing, it's not incognito. So if I start typing, it's might come up with something.
Well, I'll let you finish, and then I'll just read it from my phone.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's basically it. I just would love to hear arguments as to why Bitcoin is going to be valuable if it's not number one, because so much of its value is tied to that.
Okay, so here's his tweet. I want to read this out word for word because he got it really well. Eric tweeted out, yo, seriously, Bitcoin narratives are going to look so hilarious after the flippening. They didn't plan for being in second at all.
Is he listening in on our live stream maybe?
No. He tweeted this out like right before we got on live.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, but exactly it. That's like a really nice way of putting it.
Their branding works fantastically when they're number one. But it all falls apart when they're number two.
Yes, exactly. And like as you said before, maybe we should calm down on the hate. I mean, but it's not a hate. It's just like the reality, I think. But at the end of the day, I think Ethereum wins by its utility. ETH wins by its utility. And I think most of the world, 99.9%, do not care about digital gold. I've always thought that. Like my everyone that I know in real life that isn't into crypto, they couldn't give a shit about digital gold, man. Like at all. Like
digital gold. Okay. Sure.
Yeah, but I don't even own gold, and I don't care about gold, and who cares? It's like, and that was always the grand delusion I thought of Bitcoin is that they thought that everyone would suddenly care about a digital gold just because it was digital. When yes, the pie might be a bit bigger, but at the end of the day, people want utility out of their assets. 1% of all Bitcoin lives on Ethereum because people want to use their assets. And yeah, that's kind of like how I view it.
I'll leave maybe the stream with this last comment. There was a video of Kate and Long on some like CNBC or something, and so they were asked. She was asked like before the interview really got started. She was like, "Can you just explain the difference between Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Dogecoin?" And she said, "Well, Bitcoin is like this decentralized like reserve asset, new monetary unit. It's a brand new money that we can denominate in. Ethereum is very different." And like Caitlin Long is a Bitcoiner and was very political and didn't do any of the shitting on other assets that we are currently doing. But she was like, Ethereum is very different. And I noticed what she said was like, it's not a money, right? It's not a wealth denomination. It's a smart contracting platform. And it's not going after what Bitcoin is going after, which is trying to be a money. And then she goes, and Dogecoin is actually a fork off of Bitcoin and not all that much different than Bitcoin. And I'm like, did you just listen to what you just said? You just called Dogecoin not that much different than Bitcoin. And you said that on CNBC or whatever like platform it was. Like, holy hell. Like, there's this subreddit called Self-Aware Wolves or something. Like, she just forgot to be like a little bit self-aware that she just called Dogecoin and Bitcoin like largely the same thing.
Yeah, on a technology standpoint, they are largely the same thing. You know, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. People are going to call me crazy for thinking that, Bitcoin can fall out of the top 10. I was called crazy for thinking ETH's going to go to 10K.
Right.
Hold
on. We're not there yet. We're only at 4K.
We're there, but now it's very close and it's pretty, I think we're going to go there. And people call me crazy for the flippening talk. Well, you can keep calling me crazy. And if these things keep playing out, then I look less crazy. But anyway, I think we can leave it at that for now for today's stream.
Absolutely. All right, listeners, you can follow Sazzle. You should probably follow him on his YouTube channel. I know you guys like YouTube because that's where you're here. I just posted his daily Gwei. YouTube channel in the chat. Make sure you follow it because that's where Sazzle gives out takes of this nature every single day, or 5 days a week, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and that's where I get a lot of my news. You can also follow him at Sazzle0x on Twitter. And also like the video, and stay tuned for 1 week from today where we will do this again. Actually, we might have to reschedule that one, but at the later end of the week. And here's Daily Gwei again. Thanks everyone for listening.
Awesome.
Now I have to figure out how to shut down the stream because my application isn't even open.
Wait, are you on a Mac or a PC?
I'm on a Mac.
Oh, okay.
I'm just gonna turn off Restream. That'll do it.